Thanks, guys, for joining me today. I'm making a video that I never thought I'd have to make this video. I want to make that very clear. And I was thinking about making this video for the last couple hours, and because I didn't want to burn any bridges before they were made, right? Because obviously I'm in the UK trying to start, get this podcast up and going, or other podcast shows, whatever you want to call it, these videos, this YouTube channel. And, I don't want to break any connections with people before I've made them, especially people that, might be good connections, or people I think I'd, like to get to know in terms of friends, or maybe do videos together to, help me grow and obviously contribute to their channel. And one of those guys that I hoped and still do hope to associate with one day is James English. If you guys don't know James English, he's, I guess what I would call him, like the UK Joe Rogan. Now, it's a stretch. It's a stretch. The numbers aren't the same, but in terms of like the UK and well known and liked by people, including myself, I've watched and still do watch loads of his videos. Not every single one, obviously. I don't watch every video, but I like a lot of them, and I've watched loads, hours and hours and hours. Respect the guy. And that's why it really kills me to have to make this video, which is kind of, I'm not going to say insulting. It might be insulting. I just feel like I have to make this video simply because of his character. And I just think he's being unfair to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, with an Instagram post, which I'm going to show you. Right, so this is the post, right? I'm going to put it on your screen. In just 1 week, Elon Musk accused Trump of being on the Epstein list. Diddy is not guilty of all serious charges. And, okay, he put comma and he put and. Okay, after a comma, you don't need to put an and. So it's either a comma or an and. Sorry, that's just my... I'm a punctuation guy sometimes, so sorry. And then he says, and the Epstein client list has mysteriously disappeared. It seems like they're all part of the same exclusive club, and we ain't in it. And he has put the mugshot of Diddy, mugshot of Epstein, and then he's put a picture of President Trump with Diddy and President Trump with Epstein. And I have to say, actually, first I commented on the post. I'm gonna read you my comment quickly, right? So I put, James English, I get that, but remember that accusations have been made against you, and people judge you and your character and defend you, including myself. Yet you will jump to the conclusion on Trump because he was pictured with them. Imagine all the fans that you've taken pictures with and being linked to anything bad that they've done. Just saying you should consider that just because he's in photos in public, that he isn't a paedophile, brackets, Diddy wasn't even accused of that either. That was just my comment. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I just thought that I'd make this video. And look, hopefully James English will see this. He might not. He might. I don't know. Maybe some people, if you see this, send it to him, push it around. Not because I want this. Obviously, I want all my videos to do well. But I actually feel like this is a serious issue. And I just think that James would be the last person I'd expect to jump to these conclusions, because he knows what it's like to be accused of things, right? So what I want to do is I just want to give you a bit of a background. I'm not going to go into too much detail, right? But, James English has been accused, right, of, being like violent towards his ex-wife or whatever it was, right? To women. That's all you need to. It doesn't matter who it is. In fact, if it was his ex-wife, it probably makes it sound more believable, but I don't believe it, and I want to make that clear, right? But, he knows, and he put a post out, right? He put a post out. I'll try and, actually, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Okay, so this is a tweet that he put out March 29th, okay? So this is a post that James English himself uploaded to X, okay? So he says, I am being set up to try tarnish my reputation because I won't play their game. the accusations made against me are all bollocks, and the truth will come out soon enough. By the way, if you're American, bollocks, it means bullshit, right? I'm tired of seeing men getting fucked over with the family courts and false accusations being made by ex-partners and nothing gets done. I will be backing down from no one and exposing it all no matter what they throw at me, right? So he is saying that he is being accused of bullshit claims. I think it was woman beating, right, by his ex-partner. Whether that be, because it's family courts, I'm guessing it's the mother to his kids. I'm assuming, I'm not saying 100% true. But he is acknowledging, right, that ex-partners make false accusations, and he's saying that the family courts and the courts, he's basically saying men are getting fucked over, the system's bullshit, to a degree. He's not saying the whole system's bullshit, but he's saying that, you know, family courts, false accusations, partners, it's all believed, men, you know, don't get it fair, and he's saying that he's going to try and fight that, right? And then you think about the Epstein and post with Epstein, Diddy, Trump, right? First, let's address Trump, okay? So, actually, no, first let's address Diddy, because I think it's kind of relating to what he's saying, right? Diddy actually has basically gone through the same thing that he has been talking about, right? So, and by the way, I'm not like a Diddy defender by any means. I'm definitely not. Right? We all saw the video of him beating up that girl, right? Cassie, right? Dragging her up and down, beat the fuck out of her in the hotel at the elevator. He had the towel wrapped around him, and he dragged her, threw on the floor, kicked her like 3 fucking times. I'm sure he probably hit her more. That's cool. Well, not cool, but like cool to say. Like I definitely would believe that. I don't know if it's been said, but if you said that he beat her every day, who am I to say it didn't happen, right? But the Diddy trial, when he says Diddy found not guilty of all serious charges, right? James English seems to be complaining about that. Yet, if you think about it, right, the Diddy charges, number one, he wasn't accused of anything to do with anything Epstein did, right? Diddy was not accused of raping kids, right? Or even sleeping with kids. Whether it was rape, I mean, sleeping with kids is statutory rape. So even if a child consents, the consent means nothing because they're below the age of consent, so it's still rape, right? Like, you know, having sex with kids is rape. Whether they want to have sex with you or not, it's still rape, right? But he wasn't accused of either of those two circumstances. He wasn't accused of sleeping with underage kids, and he wasn't accused of, you know, forcing himself on underage kids. Which, with Epstein, that's all he was accused of, as well as blackmailing people because of it, right? And anyway, James English is saying that Diddy, you know, it's bad that he's been accused not guilty and that he's part of some big society. When actually, in reality, if you look at the details of the case, and I'm sorry, it seems like James English hasn't, right? To come to this conclusion, it sounds like he's been lazy with his research on the case. Because if you look at the ins and outs, and if you want to, you know, find someone who is actually reliable on the Diddy case, you might not like him as a person, you might not like the podcast Fresh and Fit, but Myron Gaines, when it comes to his, like, I guess, new journalism videos and everything, I think that he's been bang on and really, really good. And I think that with the Diddy case, he went to the courthouse himself. He was in the room with Diddy, I think, on a couple of days. He was in the courthouse watching the live trial in different rooms within the courthouse in New York. And he did a really, really good breakdown in detail every single day, like a 3-hour breakdown of what had happened in each day of the case that he was there, which covered the Cassie trial. Obviously, she was the key witness. Covered, I think, a few of the male prostitutes, which were the victims in this. And, you know, if you look at the details of that Diddy, by the way, just if you want to know the ins and outs of the Diddy case, look at Myron's YouTube. If not, I'll give you a bit of a rundown, right? But, I mean, the charges were sex trafficking across states, right? Which basically means because remember, prostitution is illegal, okay? So if you're getting a prostitute to travel across a state, let's say for example, from the state of California into the state of Nevada, right? Or from, Virginia to Arizona, where like you cross the state lines and the charge gets ramped up, okay? Because you're now not only doing the crime within one state, you're bringing someone through another crime. You understand? Because the states in America, it's they have their own laws, right? So it's they're like mini countries. That's the way you need to. If you're English, you want to look at it like that, right? Anyway, if you look at the ins and outs of the case, of the Diddy case, and you look at the testimonies from the people who were, according to the government, trafficked, right? They are male escorts. And they all said almost the exact same testimony, right? On the stand saying the same thing, right? Which is that Cassie, the woman, right? The victim, the one that he beat up in that video, Cassie's the one who rang them up. Cassie's the one who paid them to come through. Cassie's the one they had sex with. They barely spoke to Diddy, right? And that's part of the reason why the case fell apart. There's a few more things to go through. I'm not going to give the in-depth detail of everything to do with the case, but if you look at the actual evidence, the reason the Diddy case was, all the serious charges he was not guilty on was because he didn't do any of it. If you look at, even you could talk about the freak-offs, which is obviously like the main thing, the baby oil, this and that. Yeah, that's not illegal. Like, yeah, he was a weirdo and a woman essentially a scumbag, right? Not only was Diddy a scumbag, he was also a weirdo in the bedroom, right? Like, he would watch these so Cassie would get the male prostitutes to come over, she would have sex with them, Diddy would be in the same room, masturbating, wanking, and then, when the male escort would ejaculate inside of Cassie, by the way, Mum, if you're watching, turn this on. The male escort would ejaculate inside of Cassie, and then Diddy would take her into the next room and play with the sperm, and it was gross. It was disgusting, right? But not illegal. And you think of when you get into the ins and outs of the case, and you see oh wait, Cassie was the one who not only did she call the prostitutes and pay the prostitutes, and she was the one sleeping with the prostitutes, right? She also, loads of messages of her, saying to Diddy, I can't wait for the next freak off, this and that. It was all consensual, right? And she was his ex-partner. So what I'm trying to get at is the Diddy case, other than the fact that James English isn't, I'm going to assume, and I don't think he is, but other than the fact that he isn't a woman beater or some weird, sex freak with baby oil and whatever the fuck, wanking in the corner watching his girl get bummed, there isn't much of a difference between those accusations and actually what he's being accused of. Think about it. Like he said, right? Right here. Okay? Right here. Ex-partner, courts, false accusations being made by an ex. It's the exact same thing. Now, it's different because I don't think James English is a scumbag, but just because Diddy's a scumbag doesn't mean that, and beats his girlfriend, that doesn't mean that, he's fucking kids, which James English seems to be implying, or I don't know what he's trying to say here. I just think it's weird, and I think that he's being lazy with that. And then we talk about the pictures that he has, where he has Trump shaking Diddy's hand and Trump standing with Epstein. By the way, these photos look old. Trump's like 79 now. Was he 80? He's either 80 or 79, right? So in these pictures, he looks maybe 60. This has to be 10, 15. I was a little kid when these pictures were taken. That's all I know. Definitely. Because Diddy looks young. You can tell by the suit. Trump looks young. Or not young, but younger, as you can see. But let's just focus on these pictures for a second, right? So James English is implying that what? Trump, because he's in a picture with these two guys, right? So let's look at the first picture. Trump and Diddy, two celebrities. Two celebrities in a photo. Therefore, what? Trump's involved in all of his behavior and also involved in covering up for him? How does that make sense? You know, he says they're all part of the same exclusive club. You're talking about rich, famous people? Well, I'm willing to bet James English, if he is not rich already, he is on his way to becoming rich. And like I said, he is definitely okay. He's not, he's not as famous as like a Leonardo DiCaprio, but in terms of English personalities, and definitely in terms of English podcasters, this guy's famous, right? James English is famous. So let's say that if his show continues on the path, the trajectory that we see it to, because obviously with time, last few years his podcast's been getting more and more views, more and more subscribers, more and more Instagram followers. Like, he is on his way to becoming part of the rich and famous, which means he is on his way to becoming the new era version of the celebrity. I know, because we see classic celebrities, you think of Hollywood, you think of rappers, you think of actors, this type of thing. But I mean, YouTubers are the new age celebrity. These are the new age superstars, right? So in a few years, James English will be in that group of the elite. He'll be richer than us. Hopefully I can keep up. But in terms of general normal people, he'll be richer and he'll be famous. And then let's say he's like Trump is now. He takes a picture today with somebody, and then they turn out to be a weirdo. What? So that means now James English is linked because he was in a photo? And he has previous accusations made by an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife or whoever, whether it's the mother of his kids or whatever. I'm sure he would be making more posts like he just did saying, hey, I'm innocent, family court, false accusations by an ex. By the way, I believe him. I believe it's false accusations, but all I'm saying is that I think it's hypocritical and disingenuous. And not only that, I actually think it's lazy to say that because Trump was in a picture with Diddy, therefore, and Trump's a celebrity, so anybody he meets is in a picture. If I meet Trump, I'm in a picture. If James English met Trump, it's going to be in a picture. So I just think it's disingenuous, seeing as he knows exactly what it's like to be accused of stuff. Right? And then you have the picture of him and Jeffrey Epstein, right? Again, at this point, Jeffrey Epstein isn't some known sex offender or whatever it is. I don't even know because, and by the way, I just want to make it clear, the files going missing, I think it's bullshit, and I'm sure it's some sort of cover-up too, but it doesn't mean that Trump's behind it. It doesn't mean that at all. And I just think that, again, I could use myself as an example. And I'm sure James English actually would relate to this example that I'm going to give quite a lot. Where I grew up, it wasn't the best of areas. There's dodgy people in all areas, but where I grew up, there was a few rough guys. And there were people that I knew 10 years ago, or even a couple years ago, that actually went on as we got older, they ended up being some bad people. Maybe they beat up women. Maybe they, stabbed someone. And I'm sure James English knows many, many people. I'm sure he said it himself in his podcast. We all know he grew up in a rough area. I'm sure he has been friends with or associated with or taken pictures with people who ended up being not the best of guys. Or he was friends with someone 10 years ago who is now in prison for stabbing or something, I'm not saying it's a fact, but I'm saying it's probably likely. And because he's getting more and more famous and he's getting more and more clout, his show's getting bigger, and I like that. I think it's a good show and an important show, and I advise everybody to subscribe to his channel. But think of all the people that take pictures with him every time he goes out. I'm sure when he goes out, people say, hey, let me get a picture. You telling me all of those guys are clean? And what if, let's say that guy, let's say you take a picture with a guy who then turns out to be some fucking Epstein sex offender. Can we just say, oh, well, James English was in a picture with him? Oh, and now look, he was in that picture, and since then, suddenly he's gotten rich and famous. His show's got more views. He's one of the elites. People would make that argument. And he would be saying, no, that's not true. And people like me would be saying, actually, no, it's not true. Or I don't believe it to be true because, you look at James's show and he exposes all these pedophiles and he's always talking bad about them and everything. Yet, which is true, he does. But he won't then give the same credit to Trump. Because if you look at Trump's administration, right, You look at what he's doing with the border and everything. They're going after sex traffickers. Look at Tom. Is it Tom Hoffman? Tom Hoffman or Tom Homan or whatever. Yeah, Tom Homan. This guy here, literally dedicating years and years and years and years and years to stop sex traffickers smuggling kids into the United States, in and out of the United States. This is one of the most passionate guys who goes against sex traffickers, and he says Trump is the guy who sends me out there to do it. Trump has done more than all of the other presidents I've served. I think he's been under like 4 presidents or 5 presidents or something. You look at Trump was the one pushing for the death penalty for sex offenders after he watched the film The Sound of Freedom. I just feel like you look at what people are doing, right? Let's say you got James English and you got Donald Trump, and I know it's not necessarily fair because James English is a civilian and Trump became president, so he had the power to do stuff, but he has done more to stop sex trafficking than James English himself. Now, if James English became prime minister, I'm sure he would do something similar, right? But the bottom line is he hasn't yet. So if you're going to look at it, it's like I'm looking at it. I just want you guys to understand my position. I'm looking at it from a few different angles. It's like, okay, well, first of all, James, I like you and I respect you, but I think you're being a little disingenuous, and I don't think you're being fair, considering you know what it's like to have charges that are not true by an ex. Therefore, you categorize Diddy like that. Just because he's a scumbag and beats women doesn't mean that he fucks kids. And then just because Trump, is president and he took pictures with him and Epstein, and by the way, he took pictures with so many other people. Does that mean that when he takes pictures with a war hero, does that mean he's a war hero too? No. But when it's a bad guy, you lump him in the same category. They're rich and famous elites. Well, you're famous. If you're not rich, you're going to be rich as long as the show keeps going, and I want you to be rich because I think your show's great. But in 10, 20 years' time, how do we know you won't be as rich and famous as these guys? Well, I'm just saying, look at it from... Oh, and then you add in the fact, well, who's actually technically done more to stop sex traffickers? Donald Trump by a mile. So when I look at it, I just think that it's a weak argument. And then he says, well, okay, well, why did Elon Musk accuse Trump of being on the Epstein list? Well, okay, well, why did a week later he said, oh, actually, I regret saying all those things? And it looked like, and by the way, I love Elon Musk. And him and Trump, Elon with Doge cut a load of spending from the government, tried to get rid of a load of the debt, billions of dollars, or at least $1 billion. And then Trump's getting the new big bill, the big beautiful bill, which is out now and in place. And Elon's looking at, and they have a fallout saying, hey, by the way, this bill's not good. You're adding to the debt. And then suddenly he starts talking bad about him. He shows up with a black eye. People in the media, they're all accusing him of being on drugs. The Tesla stock starts going down. And then he starts tweeting at 3 a.m. saying, watch, Trump's on the Epstein list or something. Now, again, how do we know that by Musk, right? Ex-friend accuses friend of this. James English, ex-fucking Mrs., wife, girl, partner, mother to the kids, accuses you of this. In fact, if you were looking at it from a blind perspective, you don't know either of the guys, right? But you say, hey, by the way, this guy's fucking mother of his kids accused him of being something, and this guy's friend business relation accused him of being this. Who actually has more weight? Some would argue that the person that you were with and had children with knows you more than, Elon knew Trump. So, again, I'm just saying, by the way, I'm not saying that, I want to make it very clear, I'm not saying that James English is a bad guy. I'm just saying I think it's lazy. And I think to post that picture, I just think it's bullshit. Especially if you consider the fact that, I'm sure he would have Mike Tyson on his show. I guarantee you James English would have Mike Tyson on his show. And Mike Tyson went to prison for rape. Now, I'm the same as James, the same as Trump did a video talking about it, or he was interviewed about it. No one believes that Mike Tyson is an actual rapist. But he was convicted of rape. No one. Trump's biggest enemies, no one even accused him of being a pedophile, ever. Oh, what? But because now, because the Epstein list doesn't come out, then there's a picture of him with Epstein 20 years ago. Let's say, even if it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Oh, okay. It wouldn't have been 5 because he was president at that point. But let's say it was 20 years ago, right? Oh, well, suddenly he's a paedophile as well? But let me guess. James English takes picture with guy in the street, or James English is friends with a guy 10 years ago who is now a fucking rapist. I don't know him. I ain't spoke to him in years. But you won't give Trump the same courtesy? I think it's disrespectful. And I think that you're better than that. That's all I have to say on that. And listen, guys, let me know what you think. If you think I'm being too generous to Trump, well, then that's cool. But at least give me a solid argument as to why. Because I know that, this is the first video I've done in a couple of weeks, and I've been speaking a bit fast, and maybe I've been a bit all over the place. Because look, there's no script in front of me. You can't see. I'm not reading from a fucking teleprompter. I'm just speaking off the top of my head. So maybe it doesn't make as much sense as it does in my head. Like I'm trying to articulate my point clearly, and within reason, so that you understand where I'm coming from and my perspective. But based on everything I've said, I think, if you're going to say that I'm wrong and I'm being harsh, I think you have to give a few good reasons as to why. Okay, so look, maybe James English sees this, maybe he does, he probably won't. But if he doesn't, why wouldn't he see it? Because, well, he probably sees loads of people talking about him every day because he's famous and I'm sure he's rich. So by definition, compared to most other people, he's in the elite class. That's all I can say. Listen, thanks for watching. Please send this around, share it, like it, comment, subscribe, all that shit. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.